Brother Wenping, don't go. Yunwei stretched out her boyfriend Bai Wenping's clothes, pleading like a child. Yunwei, who is almost 18 years old, now has an IQ equivalent to that of a 3 or 4-year-old child, no different from a child. What the is she, it's just a fool. Hua Shasha's arm was tightly around Bai Wenping, and his huge chest was resting on Bai Wenping's wrist. Bai Wen squeezed smoothly on her rough sea. Hua Shasha's body hung weakly and bonelessly on Bai Wenping's body, and said ambiguously, "Let's go, don't worry about this fool. I bought new one-piece lace-trimmed chapped underwear, would you like to see it?" "Yes, I want. Bai Wenping was completely gone. The car accident 3 months ago smashed Yunwei's brain. When she woke up, she was stupid, and even her boyfriend Bai Wenping was hooked up with her best friend Hua Shasha. Hua Shasha pulled Bai Wenping to leave, and Yunwei held Bai Wenping again. "Brother Wenping, don't leave, Wei is scared alone." Hua Shasha was a little impatient. "Yunwei, let go." No, Yunwei said with pursed lips. Hua Shasha slapped Yunwei on the back of the head and said, "Let go." Yunwei was knocked unconscious by the slap, and lay on the table, motionless. Hua Shasha dragged Bai Wenping out. Bai Wenping saw Yunwei motionless, and she was a little worried. "You won't be killed, right? This eldest daughter can't die, she still has a lot of fortune. It's not that easy to die." Hua Shasha pulled off her skirt and exposed her underwear to Bai Wenping. "How about it? Beautiful." Bai Wenping's saliva is about to flow out. Where is Yunwei's life and death? He walked out of Yunwei's room, pressed Hua Shasha on the sofa in the living room, and an unbearable voice rang. There was severe pain in Yunwei's head. She raised her head for a long time before realizing that she was in the bedroom. The headache came violently. What happened? Yunwei held down her temple, and the broken memory finally became clear in her mind. 3 months ago, she was hit by a car and injured her head. After entering the hospital, the doctor said that the blood pressure blocked the brain nerves, and the operation was temporarily impossible. Since then, her intelligence has been deteriorating and she has lived a silly life for 3 months. It's strange to say that although she was stupid and didn't understand anything in the past 3 months, these memories are now clearly appearing in her mind. Especially about Bai Wenping and Hua Shasha's affair. It turned out that the two of them had hooked up and became rapes long before she was injured. After Yunwei's head was hit, they were even more unscrupulous, and sometimes even acted out in front of her. The reason why Bai Wenping is with Yunwei is simply because he has taken a fancy to Yunwei's huge estate. Thinking of this, Yunwei felt pain in her heart. And at this moment, Bai Wenping and Hua Shasha gasped violently in the living room. Needless to say, they knew what they were doing. The scene just now appeared in Yunwei's mind very clearly. I really want to thank Hua Shasha for the slap she slapped, and she woke up Yunwei from her stupid state. Otherwise, Yunwei will continue to be stupid, and continue to be kept in the dark by these two bitches. Yunwei bit her lip tightly. These two deceived her and insulted her, she must make them pay the price. Or Jun Xiao Yechong, sweet wife, be good. You can see it, please support. It wasn't until the sound in the living room subsided and the door closed that Yunwei got up, dressed neatly, and went to the hospital. After being bruised, she has not received good care and has been living stupidly. Now she finally wakes up and must go to the hospital to check her brain. Thinking that he was born into a wealthy family, he was smart and agile since he was a child, but did not expect to be insulted by Bai Wenping and Hua Shasha for 3 months because of a car accident. The most urgent task now is to confirm that there is no problem with his body, and then think of a way to retaliate against the dog and the man. After going to the hospital, the doctor gave Yunwei a comprehensive examination. Yunwei was holding a lot of test reports and brain CT sheets, and her slightly frowned eyebrows were finally loosened slightly. She remembered the doctor's words, "You were hit on the head before, and there was congestion in your skull that was not removed, which caused the cranial nerves to be compressed and your intelligence decreased. But now, your brain is hit again, which happens to dissolve the congestion, so it's okay now. Yes. But I still have to come for regular inspections. It seemed that Hwashasha really slapped her on the head, and accidentally smashed her head with blood congestion. At the gate, a tall young man came in. He was very imposing, his straight clothes wrapped his young and healthy body, and he looked upright and handsome. He strode toward this side steadily, with a solemn expression on his face and frowning slightly. The personal attendant on the side anxiously said, "The doctor said that the old lady must have an operation right away. But the old lady said that she won't have the operation unless you bring your fiancé." Liu Zhanting raised his long arms, squeezed his slender fingers between his brows, until he squeezed his brows to become pale, before he put down his hands. It happened that Yunwei was holding a lot of lists, thinking about things in her heart, and bumped her head into the arms of Liu Zhanting. The information was scattered all over the place, and Yunwei hurriedly lowered her head to pick it up, saying sorry. When Liu Zhanting's personal attendant saw Yunwei ram into Liu Zhanting, he made a noise, but Liu Zhanting stopped him. Yunwei picked up something and raised her eyes. Liu Zhanting's ivory-like handsome face was imprinted in her eyes. She hesitated, "Young Master Ting." Yunwei recognized Liu Zhanting, and she met him twice in the social occasions of the Yun family. He is a young genius who is rumored to be young and talented and praised by everyone. In his early 20s, he is a business genius that no one knows and no one knows in the S market. However, Yunwei was not very young. When she first met him, she was still in high school, and he was already in the business world, so she had no intersection with him. Yunwei. Liu Zhanting opened his lips lightly and spit out her name. Yunwei didn't expect that he still remembered herself, and smiled, "What a coincidence, young Master Ting. I still have something to do." Yunwei. Liu Zhanting stretched out his arms and grabbed her. Yunwei turned her head, "Is there anything wrong with Ting? Help me complete one thing." Liu Zhanting's voice was very nice, and every word was uttered with fascinating magic. This sentence, utterly sounding, is not a request, but a command. But it is strange that Yunwei did not dislike the tone of his command and opened her beautiful eyes. "What's the matter?" "Being my fiancé." Liu Zhanting was simple and clear. Yunwei was slightly surprised, her fascinating handsome face was printed in her bright eyes. 3 minutes later, Yunwei and Liu Zhanting stood in front of the old lady Lu's bed. Old Mrs. Liu opened her weak eyes, her wrinkled face was filled with satisfaction. She held Yunwei's hand and looked at Liu Zhanting. "This is Yunwei, the girl of the Yun family." "Yes, Grandma." Yunwei nodded with a smile on her face. The old lady tremblingly took off the jade bracelet in her hand. Before Yunwei could react, she put it on Yunwei's wrist. The wrinkles on her face smiled, "This is a treasure from our family, good. Keep it." Yunwei's face was surprised, and the old lady Liu was relieved and said, "Zhanting, let's arrange surgery." Mrs. Liu was pushed into the operating room. Liu Zhanting sighed in relief, as if spit out all the breath he had accumulated in his heart. Grandma was finally willing to perform the operation, and for him, it was finally a thing. Yunwei said to the side, "Young Master Ting, I will return this jade bracelet to you." Since it is a family heirloom, she naturally cannot accept it casually. She stretched out her hand to fade the jade bracelet, but the jade bracelet had grown roots, and it couldn't fade away in her hand. Liu Zhanting turned his head to look at her, the sun shone on her face, and her fine hair dropped a faint silhouette on her cheeks, soaking her features in the thin brilliance. But I don't know why, but there is a slight sadness on her face. In front of him, she seemed to show her sweetest and weakest side. With a thought, he said, "Wear it." "How can this work? This is the Liu family heirloom, I can't keep it casually." Yunwei said with a smile. But she tried her best, but she couldn't get the jade bracelet down. Liu Zhanting stretched out his long arms, squeezed her wrist, and brought it in front of him. Seeing that her wrist was flushed with the faded jade bracelet, an unspeakable emotion flashed in his eyes. He said lightly, "Is it bad to be my fiancé?" Yunwei thought he was joking, and smiled, "I have a boyfriend." She thought of Bai Wenping, and a trace of sadness flashed between her eyebrows that was already an ex-boyfriend. Liu Zhanting stared at him, "Let him become an ex-boyfriend. Young Master Ting likes digging corners so much." Yunwei joked. Liu Zhanting's gaze fell on the pile of test reports she was holding in her arms. "If you don't even accompany you to the hospital, wouldn't it be time for him to become an ex-boyfriend?" His words just hit Yunwei's heart. Why didn't Bai Wenping accompany her to the hospital? In his heart, he wished she would be foolish forever, so that he could plan her fortune with Huashasha. The sadness in Yunwei's eyes was fleeting, and she raised her eyes boldly to meet Liu Zhanting's gaze. "Okay, fiancé is fiancé. But shouting. I agree to your request." It seemed that Yunwei was expected to have the conditions, and Liu Zhanting agreed. "I haven't reached the age of 18, so the Liu family can only announce the identity of my fiancé after I am 18, okay?" Yunwei looked at him with bright eyes. Bai Wenping and Huashasha thought she was a fool, and she still needed to use her identity as a fool to deal with the two of them. Liu Zhanting did not hesitate, "Yes." Yunwei saw that Mrs. Liu got out of the operating room smoothly, and said, "Then young Master Ting, goodbye." After Yunwei finished speaking, holding a lot of test reports, she quickly disappeared from Liu Zhanting's sight. Liu Zhanting tilted his head and ordered the personal attendant on the side, "Check, why Yunwei does brain CT." The personal attendant came back quickly and said, "Master, I found it. 3 months ago, Miss Yun was hit by a car and injured her head. Her intelligence dropped to the level of a 3 or 4-year-old child." Liu Zhanting twisted his eyebrows. Yunwei just came to the hospital alone to check for old head injuries? The personal attendant continued, "Her boyfriend Bai Wenping neither had her operated nor notified the Yun family, but took care of her alone. Said to be taking care of her, Bai Wenping actually got entangled with her best friend Huasasa, while spending with Miss Yun's credit card. She is doing things that are both men and women." Liu Zhanting's brows tightened. But thinking of the way she smiled like a flower just now, her head should be better, right? The personal attendant immediately said, "The doctor said that Miss Yun's congestion on her head has disappeared, and now her intelligence has recovered." Liu Zhanting nodded, "Pay close attention to the movement of Yunwei and the other 2 people." "Yes, master." The waiter responded. Yunwei returned to her residence near the university and immediately called Aunt Ji's number. Aunt Ji is a professional nanny and the confidant of Yunwei's mother. She has been taking care of Yunwei before. After Yunwei was admitted to this remote university last year, she did not let her follow. In addition, Bai Wenping confessed to her at that time that she wanted to live a free life in college, so she didn't let the family arrange anyone to follow her. But now, Yunwei knew that she must have Aunt Ji's help. "Aunt Ji, from today, can you come and take care of me?" Yunwei said sweetly. In front of Aunt Ji, she was still that naive and carefree girl. Aunt Ji agreed in one fell swoop, "Good Wei, are you finally willing to let Auntie pass by? Wait, I'll book a flight." Putting down the phone, Yunwei destroyed all the lists she had checked today, so that Bai Wenping and Huashasha would not know that her head was healed. She wanted to see what else the dog and man had to do. Yunwei opened her wallet and found that her credit card was missing. Those are 2 high-end credit cards. Yunwei's family repays each month, so they can use them at will. Although the card was not there, Yunwei checked the credit card consumption records with her mobile phone. Sure enough, in the past 3 months, Bai Wenping and Huashasha held these 3 credit cards and did not buy anything less. Not only did they purchase all kinds of luxury clothes and cosmetics, but the two even had records of going to shops to buy lubricating oil. It's disgusting. Yunwei put down the phone and opened the drawer. When she came from home, she brought a lot of jewelry. For her, those are not very valuable, she always receives a lot from childhood to big festivals and birthdays. For convenience, when she came to the university to report, she packed all these jewels in one mind. Now think about it, in the 3 months since she suffered a head injury, Huashasha has repeatedly cheated these jewels from her hands. Sure enough, there are only a few worthless tatters left in her drawer now, which Huashasha bought from the street stall to fool her in exchange for her real gold and silver jewelry. No wonder Bai Wenping and Huashasha did not let the Yun family know about her injury. As long as the Yun family doesn't know this for a day, they can use themselves as a free ATM cash machine and ask for it endlessly. Yunwei squeezed her fists and gritted her teeth, whether it was a credit card or jewelry. Starting today, she must all come back. After spending her, she will return Bai Wenping and Huashasha. After eating her, she wants them all to spit it out. Just then, the doorbell rang. Yunwei was slightly surprised. Bai Wenping and Huashasha are back? She hurried to the door and saw Aunt Ji standing quietly outside the door. Seeing my dear Aunt Ji, Yunwei's tears were about to fall. She opened the door and plunged into Aunt Ji's arms. Aunt Ji felt the change in her mood and asked quickly, "What's wrong, Wei? Who is bullying you? Is it Bai Wenping? Auntie will help you teach him." "No, Auntie," Yunwei said hurriedly, putting away her emotions, "I'm over with him long ago." Since she was in a car accident, the relationship was completely over. Aunt Ji did not ask too much. "Aunt will take care of you in the future, no one can bully you no matter what." "Thank you, Auntie," Yunwei said with a smile, holding Aunt Ji's waist. "Although I broke up with Bai Wenping, some things have not yet come back. So don't be surprised, I will ask him slowly." "Don't tell the family, let the family help," Aunt Ji asked. "I'll take it myself." Yunwei smiled, "I'm grown up, haven't I?" Aunt Ji also smiled, "Yes, when I grow up, I am taller, but I have lost a lot of weight. Life in college seems to be really not easy at all." She put down her luggage and was about to go into the kitchen to make soup for Yunwei. Yunwei stayed with her. "Aunt Ji, please help me buy a new house on this floor. I don't want to live here anymore. But I have to keep it here. I'm still useful." Thinking of the body odors of Bai Wenping and Huashasha floating around here, Yunwei felt a little disgusted. Aunt Ji immediately said, "Okay, I'll buy it for you now." Aunt Ji turned around and went out. Yunwei simply tidied up her own things, as long as the most important things, she didn't want the rest. The whole house remains the same. After a while, Aunt Ji came back and said, "Wei, each floor of this house has 2 households. The other floors are full. The other owner of this floor is only willing to rent or not sell. I will let me rent it for you first." "Okay." Yunwei didn't mind buying or renting, carrying her own things and walking to the next door. Aunt Ji also followed. The apartment layouts of the 2 houses are similar, except that the rented one looks much better than Yunwei's own. The decoration is also very careful, and Yunwei is very satisfied. This night was the most secure and sweetest night in Yunwei's sleep since she was hit by a car accident. Early the next morning, Yunwei heard a movement in her original residence, so she asked Aunt Ji to stay and knock on the door by herself. When they knocked on the door, Bai Wenping and Huashasha were stunned when they saw her. Bai Wenping asked, "Wei, why did you go out? She has a bad mind, and she doesn't know if you ask her, why is she wasting her tongue?" Huashasha said bitterly. If she hadn't experienced this incident, Yunwei would really have a hard time believing that this is the woman who used to flatter herself everywhere, close to herself, and became her best friend since high school. Yunwei pretended to have the silly face she had before, and said with a sweet smile, "Someone is here at my house, come and take care of me. I was so happy, I went downstairs to pick it up, but I didn't receive it. When Yunwei's words came out, both Bai Wenping and Huashasha were scared to death. The Yun family has a great career, and loves Yunwei like pearls in the palm. Bai Wenping and Huashasha also dare to take advantage of Yunwei's head injury and take advantage of Yunwei's head injury because Yunwei and Huashasha are now studying in university alone. Now I heard that people from the Yun family were coming, and their faces turned pale in shock. Yunwei pretended to be silly and said, "Aunt Ji is here, and she is here to give me jewelry. She said that my birthday is almost coming, so she picked some and gave it to me." The Yun family is a family of jewelry, and there are a lot of jewelry in the family. Yunwei receives a lot for her birthday every year. Now she is almost 18, and she should receive more and better. Huashasha's eyes lit up suddenly, and she whispered to Bai Wenping, "Yunwei will receive a lot of jewels again, and I must bring them. But there is someone from her family, she is now with this IQ, are you sure you won't reveal anything?" Bai Wenping said worriedly. Huashasha glanced at Yunwei and saw she was playing with her fingers blankly, seemingly unaware of everything between herself and Bai Wenping, and she didn't seem to understand what the two people were talking about. Huashasha lowered her voice and said, "Don't care, I'll take care of it. The Aunt Ji who came here is not her family, but just a nanny. What can I worry about?" Bai Wenping was relieved by what he said, and said, "Okay, then I'll leave it to you. Then you wait for my good news." Huashasha cast a wink at Bai Wenping. Bai Wenping threw what was in his hand to Yunwei, and said, "Your breakfast, I'll go first." Yunwei was deliberately a little silly, and said with a sweet taste, "Thank you, brother Wenping." When she called Bai Wenping, she felt a little nauseous in her heart. She opened the bag that Bai Wenping handed over. There was a box of very cheap cakes and a box of unbranded milk in it. In the past 3 months, Bai Wenping and Huashasha flicked Yunwei with these cheap food and drink. Yunwei suddenly lost any appetite. Huashasha took Yunwei's hand and sat on the sofa, and said, "Wai Wei, where is Aunt Ji? When will the jewelry be delivered?" Yunwei still smiles innocently, like a child, as if her head is still not good. She smiled and said, "Aunt Ji said that she would give me the most beautiful and best-looking diamond necklace. However, she said that she would help me take the previous jewels back to clean and arrange them, together with the latest one. Bring it here together." Yunwei pretended not to understand anything, and said to Huashasha, "The best one will come by then, and I will give it to you first. Because salsa is the best." Huashasha chuckles, this time he can make a lot of money from Yunwei. But when he thought that Yunwei's previous jewels were sold or pawned by herself, Huashasha couldn't help but become anxious. Yunwei took the initiative to take out the phone and showed Huashasha the diamond necklace she was about to get. The necklace is shining in the photo. Huashasha has seen it in the advertising book before. This necklace is at least worth hundreds of millions. If you can get this necklace from Yunwei, won't you make a fortune? Yunwei had been secretly observing Huashasha's expression, and seeing that the time was right, she sent a text message to Aunt Ji. She had already agreed with Aunt Ji last night. After the text message was sent for a while, Aunt Ji came and knocked on the door. Huashasha opened the door and was taken aback. She didn't expect Aunt Ji to come so soon. Huashasha and Yunwei's best friends, Aunt Ji knew her, and said with a smile, "It's Shasha. Those jewels of Wai Wei have to be taken back and cleaned. I'm here to clean it up for her today. When it's cleaned, bring it to her again. By the way, the family will prepare a diamond necklace for her at that time." Huashasha was afraid of revealing the stuffing, but wanted to get Yunwei's diamond necklace, so she hurriedly stopped Aunt Ji and said, "Aunt Ji, I'll help Wai Wei pack these jewels, and put them in your hands. You just came, you should rest more." Aunt Ji declined, expressing her great trust in Huashasha, and said, "That's okay. I'm going to see a friend. But I'm leaving in 3 days. I will trouble you to pack this jewelry and give it to me. Right. Okay, it's wrapped around me. Huashasha said, patting her chest. Aunt Ji gave Yunwei a look and left. Sitting on the sofa, Yunwei kept smiling, as if she knew nothing and heard nothing. Huashasha patted her chest. Fortunately, even though Yunwei's brain was bruised, she was innocent and cute, and she couldn't see that she was hit. Even Aunt Ji didn't notice anything abnormal. She thought Yunwei was as stupid as before, and stepped forward and said, "You stay here and I will be back soon. I will help you clean up the jewels, so don't move." "Yeah, good." Yunwei showed a sweet smile. Huashasha went out and made up her mind. In order to get Yunwei's priceless diamond necklace, she must now retrieve the jewels she swindled from before to Yunwei. Otherwise, the stuffing will be exposed, and you won't get anything from Yunwei in the future. But she used to sell the jewels at low prices, or they went out. It is not so easy to get them back. Besides, it takes a lot of money to buy it back or redeem it. She could only call Bai Wenping to explain the matter, and said, "You give me a sum of money first, and I will redeem Yunwei's previous jewels. When I get Yunwei's diamond necklace, we have money now." Bai Wenping was originally with Yunwei for money. Hearing that Yunwei would get the diamond necklace soon, he couldn't help but beamed, "Okay, I'll get you some money." Bai Wenping and Huashasha went to collect money. Yunwei heard their conversation at the door, knowing that her strategy had begun to take effect. In order to get her diamond necklace, the couple would definitely get back all their jewelry they took away. Huashasha and Bai Wenping had no doubts about this matter, and they couldn't sit still in the face of huge interests. Yunwei knew that those jewels were about to return to her hands after all. A real smile finally appeared on her face. Immediately, she called the bank and stopped 2 of her credit cards. She would never give these 2 a chance to continue spending her own money. After Yunwei finished this, she returned to the suite next door. She threw away the cheek cakes and unknown brand milk that Bai Wenping bought for her, filled a bowl of soup made by Aunt Ji, took a sip, feeling that she was really alive again. "If I have been so foolish all the time, I don't know what Bai Wenping and Huashasha will be like." Fortunately, she woke up now and saw everything. Aunt Ji really went to see her friends, she won't leave any influence on Yunwei. Before she left, she took the diamond necklace Yunwei needed. He also left a lot of delicious food for Yunwei. While eating, Yunwei drew her previous jewels on the paper. If it is missing, she wants Huashasha to look good. In order to obtain Yunwei's diamond necklace, Bai Wenping and Huashasha tried their best to find Yunwei the jewels that had been pawned and sold at a low price. They found the place where the jewelry was sold at a low price, took the pictures, and demanded that the jewelry be bought back. Lu Zanting's black luxury car slowly stayed on the side of the street, and when he saw Bai Wenping and Huashasha, his brows were lightly twisted. What do these 2 people do at the Luya jewelry store? The personal attendant immediately understood. A phone call went over to check it out and reported, "Master, I heard that Bai Wenping and Huashasha want to redeem the jewelry they had sold at a low price. These are photos of the jewelry." Lu Zhanting glanced at the photo and recognized the jewels in the photo, many of which were from Yun's jewelry. His eyes condensed slightly, meaning that they got these jewels from Yunwei? In other words, it was deceived from Yunwei, who was injured before. So now, why should they take it back? Lu Zhanting ordered, "The price of redeeming them will be tripled." "Why? We didn't sell it for much when we sold it. Why should we redeem it at 3 times the price now?" When the staff told Huashasha, Huashasha jumped up. "Sorry, this is our rule." The staff member said businessly. "Let your manager come out. I want to see your manager." Huashasha yelled. Bai Wenping grabbed her and said, "Forget it, anyway, they are all swiping Yunwei's card. The higher the price, the higher the price." Huashasha stood aside angrily. Bai Wenping took out Yunwei's card and said, "Swipe it." The staff picked it up and quickly said, "Sorry, sir, your card has expired and you cannot swipe it." "What?" Bai Wenping was so shocked that he took out another Yunwei's card. "Swipe this." "Sorry, sir, your card has expired," the staff member reminded in a friendly and ruthless manner. Bai Wenping was completely shocked. "Is it impossible?" The card was stopped. Both of these cards belonged to Yunwei. Could it be that Yunwei found something? Huashasha shook her head. "Obviously she was still stupid when I left. Mostly the Yun family stopped the card for her." Bai Wenping worries. "Then what should I do now? It costs tens of millions to redeem these jewels. Where can I get them? But in order to get Yunwei's priceless diamond necklace, these jewels must be sent back to her." Huashasha hadn't discovered that she had been fooled by Yunwei at this time, and she was still dreaming of making a fortune. "Then you can only raise some points." "I'll raise some points, you go raise some points. Look for the points from both homes." Bai Wenping arranged. Although Huashasha was reluctant to pay, but in order to get the diamond necklace, she had to go all out. The two went to raise money separately. In order to help Yunwei redeem the jewelry, they cheeked and asked for help. Yunwei lay in the room leisurely, eating for a day, and then buying some things online. The mood of being stabbed by her boyfriend and girlfriend has been calmed down. It was getting late, and Yunwei went into the bathroom, planning to take a good bath, sleep, and maintain good energy to deal with these two bitches. The feeling of hot water washing on the body is comfortable and intimate. The rich and delicate foam also made Yunwei feel good. She couldn't help but find a tone happily and hummed softly. The sound of water in the bathroom was too loud, covering up the sound of someone knocking on the door. Lan Zhanting waited at the door for 3 minutes, and no one knocked on the door. His eyes condensed slightly. The personal attendant hurriedly said, "Master, Miss Yun is renting your property." In the footsteps of Lu Zhanting, he put his luggage. Judging from his posture, he must live with Yunwei. The personal attendant didn't dare to neglect, immediately took out the key and opened the door in twos. He took Lu Zhanting's luggage in, and then Lu Zhanting took a step and walked in. The personal attendant knew that he had no need to stay, so he immediately retreated and closed the door. Lu Zhanting glanced at the house. Although it was an estate under his name, he had never lived here. If it hadn't been for Yunwei to appear, he would probably never set foot here in his lifetime. But now it seems that this house is not bad. With the faint fragrance of the girl, it adds a touch of warmth. He strolled to the table in the dining room, reached out and picked up 2 pieces of paper. That is Yunwei's jewelry that belongs to her. It was also the jewelry that Bai Wenping and Huashasha cheated from her. Lu Zhanting thought of Bai Wenping and Huashasha looking anxiously raising money to redeem those jewels, and Yunwei's smiling eyes appeared in his mind. Lu Zhanting was deeply impressed by the sly flicker in her shallow eyes. Lu Zhanting's lips curled up. After the kitten wakes up, someone will suffer. I just don't know, how else would she play with those 2 mice? He strolled to the door of the room, the door was hidden, and he walked in generously. In fact, when he walked in, Yunwei had already discovered that someone had come in. She was shocked, and immediately got up from the bathtub quietly and put on her bathrobe. As a smart girl who has just been hurt and sober, she has always been able to protect herself. She was going to call the police, but she put her phone in the closet just now. But Yunwei was not afraid. She immediately found a handy weaponty mop, and held it in her hand. So just when Lu Zhanting walked into the room, he was attacked. A mop hit him on the head. If it weren't for the quick response and good skill of Lan Zhanting, he would have been shot. With a backhand, he grabbed the mop and thumped Yunwei against the wall. Fortunately, he realized that it was Yunwei in time, and then he withdrew his fist, otherwise, Yunwei's face was already bleeding. But Yunwei hadn't seen clearly that the person was Lu Zhanting. She exclaimed softly, "Hey, let me go. I have already called the police, and the police will come soon. You still have time to escape now, otherwise you will be sentenced to at least 3 years. After she finished shouting, she was actually very worried. It stands to reason that she had a good grasp of the timing and the angle of her shot, and it was impossible for this thief to escape. But he avoided speaking, and counterattacked simply and neatly. Although Yunwei was courageous, she was young after all. After threatening the thief, she didn't hear any response, and she didn't feel at all in her heart.